Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you, as my viewers and subscribers, about something that deals with guns, gun culture, politics, current events, the news, or something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. And this week's question deals with privacy. Well, it's kind of a side topic of firearms because I know many of you are very private about the firearms that you own, keep, and possess. You also don't want people possibly knowing about how much ammunition you buy or what accessories you buy. We know that the ATF has been going after certain accessories in the past and certain things that fall into a gray area, and somehow they're able to track people down that buy them. Now, of course, us internet sleuths are able to put the pieces together and figure out what's going on. But we know that things like social media companies, credit card companies, and your banks also track you as well. So the question is, really, how do you keep things private? And do you want to keep things private, or do you not care because the things you buy and sell really aren't things that you're too worried about the ATF or the government wanting to go after? We've seen the ATF go after things like force reset triggers and something called Operation Reticent Recall. And they were going to people's houses. They were sending people letters that had bought these things through various means and tracking them down and saying, hey, this force reset trigger you have, we now consider a machine gun, and you need to turn this into us and forfeit it. We're not going to go after you criminally, but you can't own this anymore. And people were scratching their heads going, how in the world did you find out that these people had these? What is going on here? How were you tracking them down? It's not like there was anything like a 4473, and these parts weren't serialized. Well, were the companies giving up this information? Well, many of these companies were not giving up information, and they were not cooperating with the ATF. So how did they figure out how these people came into possession of these items? Well, there's a number of things that I think they were doing. One of them was through the Postal Service. As you might know or might not know, the Postal Service pretty much keeps a record of all of the mail that goes through their system. They're always scanning the addresses and what the boxes are and the sizes. In fact, you can sign up for a service to see what mail you're getting that day or the upcoming week, things that are in the system. And possibly they were using this and going, well, we know this is the company that was selling these, and these were the addresses that they went to, even if they went to links to hide these addresses, just like I believe Rare Breed Triggers did when it came to selling some of them. They were selling them or sending them under the address of Red Beard Tactical or something of that nature, or Red Beard Treasures. But of course, people were able to figure that out, and the ATF said, anything in their system, the post office's system, with that return address, well, we know pretty much what it is. They were tracking people down. But that's in the later parts of Operation Reticent Recall. When this all first broke, it turned out a lot of people that bought these on auction websites like Gunbroker, Arms List, or Guns America were getting these letters and notifications, and people were going, well, who is working with these people? It turns out that the ATF, just using the Gunbroker website, was able to start figuring out who was buying and selling this. Now, they did raid one seller, and possibly through legal action, maybe the owners of Gunbroker were giving this information to the ATF, but they were able to track your purchases through a website. I don't know if there was necessarily a search warrant, but using other means and publicly available data, by just looking at the website, following it, possibly creating a program to track all of that, they were able to figure out who was buying and selling these items. And then when the time came, they were able to go knock on people's doors. And for me personally, that was a little bit concerning. Now, I totally know that when I have a firearm shipped to a local FFL, I'm going to fill out a 4473. That's perfectly fine. I also fill out a bunch of NFA paperwork, so the ATF knows what I have when it comes to short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, suppressors, destructive devices, and so forth. So that doesn't bother me because I voluntarily went into that system. But if I'm buying an accessory, something that's not a firearm, do I really want all of my purchases tracked? Do I want it to be in some type of database? And that made me start thinking, Do I really want to use these auction websites like I used to? Or will I continue to use them because the things that I buy there really aren't in this gray area? Because lately the ATF has only been going after these things like 80% part kits, the FRT triggers. I actually think in the future they might go after binary triggers, and they're going to go back to these websites and all of this information that probably a bot program is aggregating when it comes to these auctions, so they can go to people's houses and go, you got to turn those in. So the question is, let's say we get to a dystopian future and they're coming to confiscate firearms. And you're like, well, they don't know that I have this because I bought this on an 80% parts kit. Well, now they kind of know what you have, and they're going to come to your door and say, you got to hand it over. So, have you changed your buying habits when it comes to auction websites now that we know that the government is tracking you and these companies possibly will work with the government and hand over all of this data? Does it concern you at all? Well, that's the question for this week. So with all that said, let's dive right into this week's poll, and then we're going to get your results. In the past few months and years, we have seen that the ATF has been following auctions and tracking people down who might be buying and selling certain gray area things through the use of websites like GunBroker, Arms List, and Guns America. For example, they tracked down many buyers of the FRT triggers and certain parts kits using this data. Now that this information is out on their methods, are you more or less concerned about using online auction sites for your Second Amendment needs? So I know when this information was coming out on the ATF going to people's doors on items that were never transferred on a 4473, it started to raise a lot of alarm bells. Now, in full disclosure, a friend of mine who lives locally is the owner and CEO of Guns America. And I've talked to him a little bit about this, and he has said that really the ATF has not come to them in any capacity asking them for information. Now, I do know that when it comes to many of these gray area items where the ATF has either sent people letters or shown up at their door, they usually purchase them on GunBroker. So I'm not sure if certain auction sites have certain back doors to their information that the ATF has figured out how to gain access to, or if GunBroker is working with the ATF. I do not have any information, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Or maybe it's just a bunch of agents in Washington, D.C. going through GunBroker and actually following all of these different auctions. I have no idea, but they are getting the information, and it seems more like it's coming from GunBroker. Now, I personally like GunBroker and have purchased through GunBroker, but I have never bought an item that I consider to be in the gray area of firearms. Pretty much everything that I've ever bought has been a pistol, a rifle, or a shotgun. Your typical stuff. Nothing that I think is in that gray area, as I said, where one day it could be banned as an accessory. But I know a lot of people do, and they don't worry about it because these items are shipped directly to your door because they're not firearms. But the government might be tracking all of this, and many of you, as I said, are concerned about your privacy. So now that you know this, let's see what you guys are saying in this week's results. With 117 votes this week, we have more concerned. I use these sites less now, 17%. No concern. I do not buy anything that is in the gray area of law, 48%. Less concerned. I think these sites are becoming more secure, 2%. Neither. I have never used auction sites, 26%. And something else, explain in the comments, 7%. So it looks like the vast majority of people are not that concerned because the things that they're purchasing on these sites really aren't in this gray area. But that also makes me wonder why the emotions get so fired up when the ATF does go after many of these devices. I remember talking on the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the week in the past about things like bump stocks. And there were so many people in the comments section that were saying, I never bought one, I never used one, I thought they were a gimmick. And when it comes to a lot of these accessories that we all can agree are in this gray area, well, the emotions get all fired up. But many people, I think, have that rational view, like when it came to the ATF pistol brace rule. They all go, well, we all knew what pistol braces were used for. It was in that gray area, but still people got all upset. But if you were concerned about your own privacy, well, you knew it was going to have to be transferred on a 4473 if you bought a firearm. So if you're just buying pistols, rifles, and shotguns that are typical Title I firearms, it wasn't really that big of a deal. And I feel like so many of you are in that same area. But let's go through each one of these and I'll give you guys my personal thoughts and opinions. First, we have more concerned. I use these sites less now. For the most part, this is how I feel emotionally. I'm actually a little bit concerned if I'm trying to bid on something. And as I said, I've never bought any of these gray area items from Gunbroker. Normally, when it comes to accessories, I buy through companies directly or go to my local gun shop or go to a gun show. I'll never use an auction site really to buy an accessory unless it's something really rare, but usually it's like a barrel or a muzzle device that I'm trying to get for a particular build. But that's nothing that I'm too concerned about, like when it comes to a forced reset trigger or any type of device like that. So I've never been worried about that. But I also am now a little bit more hesitant when it comes to buying, even if it is Title I firearms. I'm like, well, I know the ATF already knows what I have because I have so many NFA items, but it does make me pause just a little bit more. Then we have no concern. I do not buy anything that is in the gray area of the law, and this was the vast majority of you, and I would have voted for this if I voted in these polls, because as I said, I am very aware that everything you do is tracked. Even if it's not tracked by a human being, it is tracked by a program. And even if you are going to be buying something that is not transferred on a 4473, well, the post office is going to have a record of that. The company is going to have a record of that. The ATF might now be having a record of that. And all of this data can be aggregated into a big old spreadsheet. So you think you're buying things that they don't know about, when in actuality, they know exactly what you have. Then we have less concerned. I think these sites are becoming more secure. And that got 2%. Some people think that maybe these companies, understanding the way business is being done, that maybe they need to make their auctions more private, more secure, unless, of course, they get a valid warrant from a court. But if the ATF is getting this information without a warrant, well, they need to shore up their information to make sure it is not getting out. But 2% thought maybe that's the path that they're taking. Then we have neither. I have never used these auction sites. Now, I don't understand how, if you live in the world of technology today, you haven't at least gone to the websites and used them maybe for price comparisons, because there's things on these sites you cannot get at local gun shops. Now, you can go and order them, but often when it comes to things like limited production firearms or very hard to find accessories like a Surefire 4-prong muzzle brake, you got to go to the auction sites because they're the only people and the only places that you can find them, especially maybe if you're looking for a rare old used gun. You might not find that at a gun show or a gun shop because they're so rare. You got to go to these auction sites. But maybe some people were forward thinking and realizing, yeah, all this data is going to get tracked, so I'm not going to use them at all. And then finally, we have something else. Explain in the comments. And a lot of people that said this said they prefer to buy all of these gray area items in person and with cash. And honestly, I think that is a great way to go. And I honestly think that can extend to much more than firearms and firearms accessories. Anything in the world you can buy with cash. It's still legal. If you're buying a legal item with U.S. legal tender, well, it's a legal transaction. They can't track you, and there's no record of that transaction. Personally, when it comes to firearms private sales that I have done in the past, cash is king. I always like to get a bill of sale, so that's the only thing and document that I have regarding that transaction that I personally keep. However, I'm going to do a cash transaction. I'm not going to do PayPal or Zelle or any of that. Cash is king. There's no record of it. Nobody needs to know if I'm legally selling a legal product to someone that can legally own it. It's no one else's business. But as I said, that can extend into a lot of other things in life. I really feel that we need to go back to using cash more in our society for many of our transactions. We're going to a cashless society because it's so convenient. But of course, when everything is cashless, everything can be tracked. So that's what I think on all of these. But now let's see what you guys had to say with the top rated comments of the week. And the top rated comment of the week comes from Big John 832, who says, I personally have only ever looked up the FRTs because they looked fun and unique, but after watching enough videos, reading up on them, turns out you would have to buy other parts, assuming you didn't already own them, to make them run effectively, therefore making them cost more than I'd pay for a nice trigger. Yeah, and I know that a lot of these items, like the FRTs, in my personal opinion, are kind of gimmicks. I've seen those videos, and I think one of the biggest downside to those is that it's either on or off. If the gun is on safe, it won't fire, but if you put it onto fire, which would normally be like a typical semi-automatic mode, well, it's just going to be in this FRT mode. They didn't have one for regular, just single shot, and then you go into FRT. So honestly, it was not practical. It was just a gimmick, and they really never interested me. It looked like a big waste of ammo. But that was just my personal opinion. But I understand where he's coming from because he's talking about the gray area items of these auctions. And I think a lot of people felt that same way. But still, I will tell you personally, I do feel that they should be completely legal because they are not mechanically the same as a machine gun and they do follow the letter of the law. Then we have Rufus Rizzo 78 who said, like you said in a recent video, if you don't want to be tracked, go with face-to-face and cash transactions. That has always been the case. If you're doing something illegal, then law enforcement will have to do work to catch you. Also, it's probably best not to do illegal things and do not do frowned upon things online. I still buy things online mainly for availability or the price is right. That said, I try to find something to buy at my local gun store just to do my part to help them all. And I agree. Honestly, I have no problem paying a little bit of a premium so I can have the item now and support local businesses. Man, these local gun shops do so much good work. But sometimes, as I said, despite their best efforts, they just don't have what you're looking for in stock, or they can't get it, or they don't deal with that manufacturer, or it's an accessory or a gun that hasn't been manufactured in some time, and the odds of them having it in the used gun section is very limited. But I do like to use my local gun stores. But getting back to what he was talking about, illegal activities online, I have mentioned in past videos that as a music teacher, I have had clients from all over the spectrum. And currently, I have a student that actually has parents that work for the ATF. I know, it's crazy. And they actually are pretty high up in the Dallas field office. And I was able to talk to them about some of this and casually ask them, so how do you guys do some of this? Just trying to get some information. And they said, well, a lot of what they do is seeing what people post online that is illegal and trying to track them down. It's amazing what, for example, gang members will put online, showing them shooting full auto Glocks with those imported Glock switches. Of course, they're going to track you down. Social media companies are going to help them with that. You'd be surprised what idiocy people put out there, and then they're all surprised that they're able to track them down. Just don't do anything illegal and post it online and brag about it. You might be surprised who's watching. Then we have Paul K003 who said, I don't buy things that I think may be in the gray area. I had the chance to purchase one of those FRTs from BDU when they offered them. I saw the video and knew that was trouble coming down the pipeline with that one. It's not like that I didn't like them, but I realized that after the newness wore off, it was just another ammo waste. I can do the same thing with my finger. I just might get there a few seconds later. Keep up the good work, Jason. Yeah, that is true. As I said, as long as it didn't have that selector switch where you could just go to a single shot, you wouldn't have to worry about it, and then you could go into the force reset mode, it was just honestly a big ammo waster. But I totally understand why people wanted it. It's probably a really cool range toy. Yeah, but I totally get it. As I said, it is a waste, but I do think you guys should be able to own it. But common sense prevailed, going, well, I don't know if I want to get involved in this right now. I'm going to wait a little bit longer and see what happens when it comes to the legal aspects of these triggers. Then we have Master Failure. I have only used these sites one time, and that was to buy a hard-to-find gun. Maybe that rare, hard-to-find, and gray area is what attracts people there, since you cannot find these in a standard gun shop. I don't think I will avoid the sites, but I will definitely be cautious of my impulses not to fall down the gray rabbit hole. Most that followed that path probably did not start out that direction. Yeah, and I completely agree. Normally, as I said, I go to the auction sites when I'm doing like a clone rifle build and I need a really special handguard, or I need something that has been out of production for a long time. It's a certain barrel, a certain muzzle device, a certain optic. That's when I really go to those. And I will use them also for price comparisons. If I know I'm going to go to a gun show and I'm interested in a certain gun, well, I'm going to go see what the prices are across the board. For example, I'm really interested in one of those new FN high powers, and online they go for about $1,100. But when I go to a gun shop or a gun show and I see them for $1,500, I know to pass. Then finally we have Cookie Monster 1969, who said, I pay attention to what's going on and steer clear of the hot issues. My ammo bill is still bad enough without FRT, but there are other things I'm paying closer attention to. And that is a good point. I really think in the Second Amendment community, we must be more proactive instead of being reactive. It was really surprising when the ATF started going after the pistol braces that so many people were shocked. Oh my God, and they were all worried. I'm like, guys, we've kind of already been talking about this and knowing this, even if you didn't want to admit it, for the past like 5 years. We all looked at this and knew it was a workaround of the NFA. So I understand why you're upset, but why are you surprised? Same thing kind of goes with FRT triggers. We already know the government is going to infringe upon our rights. They're going to make stuff up, make up rules, and go after this. Even though the letter of the law says what a machine gun is, and FRT does not fall into that category, we all kind of know what the FRT is designed to do and break the spirit of the law. So don't be surprised when they try to go after them. You know, just use some common sense. And I think if more people in the gun community were more proactive rather than reactive, it might change things. For example, if you know, hey, this is a new item, I really think the ATF was going to go after that, well, maybe wait until you can find it at a gun show and buy it for cash. There's no record of that transaction. You get what you want, and even if the government comes after it later, they don't know you have it. Just be smart about it. Be proactive rather than buying it all, having all this transactional data, and then be surprised when you get some type of letter going, hey, you know that $1,000 in FRT triggers you spent? Well, you got to turn them over to us now, or maybe in the future we're going to come after you criminally. Yeah, that's not a good letter to have, I'm assuming. So that's what I think about this, and I hope you guys are going to be, as I said, more proactive rather than reactive. And when it comes to these auction sites, hopefully you guys will start to protect your privacy a little bit more. I really think it's something that everybody in the Second Amendment community needs to do. So this was a very enlightening poll, and I hope it helps somebody in the future when it comes to making their own decisions. So this was a great poll as always. I really enjoyed it, and if you would like to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I always post the polls there. Please go over there, see what they're about, vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. So let me know in the comments of this video, are you working hard to protect your privacy? Or because of what you're buying and what you're looking at, you don't really care? So, as always, thanks for watching.